Hello, and today we'll be playing the newest update for Devil's Gambit. And I believe this new update will conclude this arc or this chapter, which deals with the backstory. It covers the 10 years that Hector's been gone and how Kagan and Ryan grew up between the time Hector left with his father and the time Hector came back. So I'll go ahead and tell you. Cold, a white seat, soft yet cutting as a knife, covers Rannai every winter. Kagan says, no stove, no warmth. So even though he finally owns that sack he worked so hard for, this year we sleep at teacher's shrines for as long as it rains white. The teacher's bones become more visible by the year, but he remains strong, and despite the cold, the place is well kept. Although during the day I have the chance to notice moss under the hanging frogs. It begins when we go to sleep. Kagan lies on a bed that Tisa prepared for him not too far away from the fire and closes his eyes. Silence, except for the flames crackling. Eventually, Teacher snores join the fire. Both of them fade away little by little, then there's perfect darkness, but in the dark I see a light. It is but a single star in the pitch black sky, but it draws me in, so I swim to it. And surely the light grows into the size of the waning white, then then a fire fruit, then an ocean I fall in. And find myself face to face with the me that breathes. Conkan is as surprised as I am. He touches his face, trying to confirm corporal his corporal reality. Then he touches mine, and finds me to be as solid as he is. Neither of us get to say what we're thinking before the two voices ring out. We're in the middle of a nice forest, yet the trees tower over us like they did when we were children. In the middle of the forest is Rannai's church. A young wolf sits by the steps, chipping away at a block of wood. An older wolf peeks out from inside the building to ask about the preparations. A young one leaves the unfinished piece of wood on the steps and runs inside. The world turns around us. Trees are washed away by the wind. The church breaks down into splintered wood and crumbled rock. We alone are untouched as everything is swept away. But after the blink of an eye, we are presented with another sight. The young wolf now sits down by the river. He's talking to someone, though I struggle to make sense of their words. They close their eyes and dip their hands in the water, feeling around for something. Every once in a while, the little wolf that sat on the steps goes, aha! It takes a small stone out of the river. This keeps going until a wind blows and small white pellets fall from the sky. The wolves take the stones they have been able to procure and run away with them deep into the forest to nowhere in particular. When the forest is buried in white to the point all one can see is the bark of the trees, the wolf that sat on the steps slows down and looks back. He looks right back at us. The next morning, as Kakan The next morning, as Kagan helped with breakfast, Teacher told us he dreamed about us. He had dreamed about an old friend, about them losing something in the river and looking for it for hours on end, and about us being there right after. Me and Kagan chalk it up to a coincidence, but the next night I see that light in the dark again. I don't oppose teacher's dream just out of curiosity. I feel an old instinct waking up inside my blood and intuition. I focus and swim towards the light with a purpose. To revisit a day he taught me to scope. My presence expands alongside the light, and an invisible tether forms between me and teacher. We sense each other's presence now. The dark opens to reveal a vast field of frogs. They croak under the starry sky as they turn to look at the younger me and teacher. The younger me still has his black and white fur and is carving a piece of wood with short and erratic cuts. Teacher instructs him on how he should hold a knife and to move it with his arm, not with his wrist, because the dark god's influence hadn't spread that far up. The memory turned into a dream. But how far back can I go? What is stopping me from going years and years into the past? What's stopping me from meeting mom and dad again? Besides, Kagan, teacher, knew them the best. If I can ever find them again, it would be here in this dream. And yet I feel a hand on mine, stopping me from crossing that threshold. Kakan stares into my eyes and slowly shakes his head. This is the only time I can feel his warmth running up my fingers, but this is also an illusion, just a trick of the mind. None of this is real. With just a look, he shatters an illusion before it begins. We can never go back to those days, not through our memories, not through earnings. And when I gaze at Kagan's eyes for a moment, I believe I understand why. What we, and when I gaze at Kagan's eyes for a moment, I believe I understand it. What if we don't want to wake up ever again? What if the dream is too captivating? But with just a flick of Kagan's eye and that small hesitance, I see that the truth might be that we cannot recognize them, that the memories of the old Kagan truly never belonged to us, that he and us were never the same, that the body we inhabit is just a discarded cell of our souls crawled into. We aren't devils for nothing, you and I. Maybe I'm the one who has the looks and the magic of one. But truth is a realm of demons, and those eyes dispel lies, brother. Though you never hide your fierce stare, your true nature escapes them because they don't know where a real devil is, and they know, but all they know are the made-up tales and legends. They couldn't find demon if he was staring them right in the eyes. Coming, I opened the door and I blinked when I saw that a lion was waiting on the other side. The fur on my back stood on end, and lion's claws hovered next to either side of my head, ready to pounce at any second. But then the lion coughed and pushed forward a large box I hadn't noticed until then. I also realized there was a carriage behind him. A wolf of gray fur was chewing on some berries and watching from the coachman's seat. What is the meaning of this? Start of the day, you will be the settlement's peacekeeper. So has his grace decreed. He pointed at the crate. This is your armor. The Duke expects you will need it. What? Why? That's all he said. Keep things quiet. We won't need to step in. Understood. I continued pressing him for questions, but he simply ignored them and got in the carriage. I closed the door and looked at the box. Wine spoke into my ear. What the hell is this? Is little Padino mocking us, pretending we'll do his bidding? I don't know. Why now? You tell me. It does sound like he expects something to happen soon. Inside the box was the blue armor I go on to wear for a good part of the following year. For the time being, though, we just took a look before putting the lid back on and going outside. This peacekeeper business gave me a bad feeling. We need to investigate what was happening. Back then, the Baron was still a collection of desolate land in small sacks far apart from each other. However, that day there was a group of wolves walking around with a large parchment and shovels. The oldest of the group was pointing here, and there was the others dug spots, and there was as the others dug spots to insert wooden poles into the soil. One of the local wolves shouted at a well-dressed lion in front of his sack. The lion produced from his pocket a small bag that jingled as it moved, which almost like a spell. One of the local wolves shouted at a well-dressed lion in front of his sack. The lion produced from his pocket a small bag that jingled as it moved. It was almost like a spell quickly calmed the other man down. And well, there were a bunch of guards walking around. They were staring at me, probably just because of my size, but just in case I did my best not to make eye contact and beeline to Ricardo's house. Neither of us liked this one bit. Ryan was floating in circles around me, clenching and opening his hands, his gaze stuck in the glare forward. Slowly but surely, he was inching close to me. I took a deep breath and knocked on Ricardo's door. Kagan, one moment. Speaking of the devil, I was thinking of looking for you. Why, what's happening? This morning, one of the Duke's guards showed up at my place, told me I'm now the peacekeeper, and gave me this armor. And now, I gestured at our surroundings. I see. Let me get to the point, Kagan. Last night, I learned that Leo Bodino died. He's dead? The lion nodded. I'd rather not talk about this here. My kin might not take kindly to it. Why, should we go to the forest? We don't need that much secrecy, just fewer lions. Our usual place will do. So, do you know how it happened? Illness, apparently. According to his doctor, he'd long been struggling with an imbalance in his flesh, and it finally caught up to him. Mighty suspicious story, if you ask me, especially considering how quickly his son took the reins to begin running this show. He's planning to turn the Baron into a whole housing district. I don't know what his goal, but it must be big because there's talk of bringing dozens and dozens of lions into town. And apparently, he's not counting on the wolves being happy about it. Do you suspect the same thing I do? My shoulders rose as I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I came face to face with Ryan. He had an expression I'd seen him practice in front of the mirror for hours in the years since his body began changing. It was once caught his face, his words, his mannerisms, the confidence in his grin, everything he had been practicing in case this day came. And indeed, it had arrived. You know what this means, brother. An upstart duke gathering lions and getting ready for trouble with the wolves. He wants to invade the Eye Valley. It's certainly possible. I suppose after seeing his father's success with the Earth Helpers, he hopes to unearth something similar to establish his own legacy. How predictable. For how much longer will we need to suffer these intruders? But it doesn't matter. We'll protect the Alley Valley nonetheless. What's your idea? Why don't we pay him a visit? Let us give him a taste of terror the valley he covets so much has to offer. We'll show him some terrifying magic that'll leave him panicking and screaming. When he screams, he's met a demon. When he screams, he's met a demon. Nobody will believe him. We are supposed to be a state after all. We'll torment his dreams and nights, lay traps, and sabotage his trespasses until he breaks and backs off the valley. How does it sound? Wine's idea, although very wine-like, made some sense. Leopoldino had only been successful in his expedition because of the information he had gained from kidnapping our parents and because he had nobody to oppose him, at least not Simon in the flesh. We didn't know if Manuel was aware of the truth of Leopoldino's expedition, but even if he did, his chances of making it into the valley with Wine's intervention were slim. Wine proved to be very efficient at coming up with ways to keep him away from the valley, modifying an old earth helper to instantly make Hazley sprout was his idea. It was a sort of ploy that only somebody in touch with both nature and the dark god would come up with. Inside our mind, he traced a map of the valley. He knew where the dangerous creatures nested, the fruits he could use to lure the sweet buds, the colonizers' food supply, with pathways to block off of Hazley. The traditional attire he had gotten from that valley so many years ago had a different circle engraved on the inside side of the buckle and the bracelets. The buckle, in particular, would prove essential to us with its invisibility circle. On top of that, we still had access to the mansion through the secret passage. Even if we didn't find a way to break into Manuel's room, we could still enter the dreams to torture him. The mansion had plenty of empty rooms for us to hide in. All in all, I rather liked our chances, and this was all Wine. I settled at the thought of what a town of summons would accomplish. It was no surprise that they had been able to pass for demons. All that said, I had some reservations. While most people would run at the sight of a demon or even be driven crazy from being haunted by one, those beckoned by the valley are all but ordinary. We had nothing about Manuel except for the suspicion that he had murdered his own father. Ricardo, who actually interacted with the man and would have known if he suffered from ailing health, was on the same page. We had nothing about Manuel except for the suspicion that he had murdered his own father, Ricardo, who actually interacted with the man and would have known if he suffered from ailing health, was on the same page. If Manuel was the sort of man that would kill his own blood just to evade the valley, I wondered if Wine's approach would truly start the drive that was pushing him into the dark god's embrace. He'd make him falter for sure, but not stop. On the day of the expedition, just a bit before the caravan departed, Ryan went into the forest up to the ruins at the valley's threshold. He sat down on the roof, looking in the town's direction. He spotted the huge wagons the lions were struggling to get through the forest hours before they actually caught up. What's this? Did it not occur to these simpletons how difficult it would be to take all that through the forest? Probably, but the Duke's word is absolute. And he's not the one that actually has to do it, so why would he worry? This will be easier than I thought. The lions settled into the ruins of the night. Their plan was for some to stay and began building a settlement while the others went ahead and looked for a fitting spot for an outpost deeper into the valley. Manuel, in his ignorant arrogance, wished not only to access the valley but to populate it. It was such a reckless, ill-conceived idea. The lions knew nothing of its dangers. They had been led to believe that there would be nothing a spear and some shouting could not solve. Wine attracted some sweet bugs to the lion's food supply. What he expected to happen the next morning was that the lions would realize their food wasn't edible anymore and would back off. Instead, they just brushed the bugs off and ate it like nothing. They fell terribly ill hours later. When the lions venturing deeper in, Wyan made patches of hay leaf to lure them to an area where he planned to destroy their wagons with a landslide. Instead, they walked through the hay leaf and, lost in a frenzy, turned against each other. Those people neither knew nor respected their land. The first attempt at the expedition fell through in little more than a day. With just a gentle push from Wyan, they fell right into the valley's maw, got chewed up and spat out. But to end there would be leaving the deed unfinished. What would kicking these lackeys out accomplish if we didn't deal with their boss as well? Wyan knew that if the Duke was anything like his father, Manuel must have been furious that his expedition resulted in such a swift and complete failure. Nothing mattered to a lion of his class more than image. To fail to live up to his father's success in taming the valley was beyond humiliating, and Wyan planned to pay him a visit while the wound was still fresh. Somewhere in the forest, not too far away from the river, a cellar door lies in wait. Although Rannai's forest will move its arms and fingers to cut intruders to give a warning that they are not welcome, I now realize there are also parts that never change. The trunks and branches around me, they feel familiar. Do you still remember, Hector? We snuck out at night and visited the river. Why were you crying back then? Was it something I did? But you didn't seem sad. In your eyes, all I could see was my own reflection. Did you perhaps wish that moment to last forever, to never let go of each other? If only, for now, I must be Wanskai. Tonight, a hunt. The cellar door is here, forgotten and indistinguishable from the earth. I find its rim and pry open. There's a creak alongside, a sound like falling sand as the soles slides off. Kagan watches his face is cold tonight and doesn't let anything sell through, almost like a stone mask. But I know that deep down he's scared. I am too, perhaps even more so. But it's not just. In me, another emotion bubbles up closer and closer to the surface. It has not made itself known just yet, but I can sense it coming. It's in my flared up nostrils, the force with which I grip the gate. We descend into an all too familiar tunnel, even though it's so dark and damp. For a moment, it's like stepping back into our childhood. On the floor, I see the tiniest of glitters, gems, golden trinklets, and coins litter the end of the tunnel. Ah, I completely forgot about you stealing for the Duke. It still brings back memories. Indeed. I can already hear the fist swimming in Caddy's head as he tries to find a use for all this. As for me, I ascend the ladder that feels far too small. I can already hear the fist swimming in Caddy's head as he tries to find a use for all this. As for me, I ascend the ladder that feels far too small. For the first time in years, the portrait of the sad-eyed lioness opens. The halls of the mansion are frozen in time, exactly as they were back in the day. No 10 men in sight. The tyrant shuffles in his sleep. He grumbles a name, an order, and he turns. Not even his dreams can he escape the frustration of his failure. He opens his eyes. At the same time, the tick-tock of the grandfather clock stops. There's a swell of flowers in the air that stings his nostrils. He peeks with one eye at the room beyond his bed. Did it always look so dark at night? And then, all of a sudden, he sees something shifting in the corner. He swears he can make out what seems like a pair of purple horns. Gasping, he reaches for his nightstand, grabbing his mask and holding it against his face as he shouts. Who, who's there? There is no response. The Duke stares at the horns, unsure if this is another dream, but then they move and he identifies the creature's blood-red rubies staring at him. It stands up and steps forward, clutches bed seats. He starts calling for his guards, servants, for anyone, but then he feels something cold, coarse, and damp on his arm. He tries swatting it away, but it has wrapped around his forearm, and he can't shake it off. Then another wraps around his leg, then his neck, and finally it invades his mouth and gags him. It has to be a nightmare, he must think. These must be the tentacles of a creature climbing up from the lowest forgotten depths. But then he sees the truth. The tendrils restraining him on vines. All around him is a well of the Eye Valley, leaves, flowers, and branches that lunge forward like sharp claws growing ever closer, threatening to poke out his eye, pierce his skin, and dig into his flesh. So preoccupied he is with trying to free himself that he forgets about the creature that is, until it grabs his head with such force that it threatens to break his skull open. It's then, while being forced to face the monster, the demon, that he sees it, a smile. How many years did I suffer because of you? At long last, it's my time to hurt you back. The vegetation around him crackles as the sides of his face become hotter and hotter. All he can see is purple as the sizzling noise suddenly overpowers his ears. As the vines silencing him burn to cinders, he finally screams. His face feels raw as the fire burns through fur and skin, spreading a sickening smell. But none of it is as terrifying as the indifferent look above him, which he can still see through all the smoke and flames well after his eye should have burned out his socket. The wounds, those hundreds upon hundreds of years of secrets, come out as a booming voice that overpowers all sound, all pain, and smell. 1,000 voices in full bloom, all speak through Rannai's final demon in unison. Fear the valley, O cursed wretch. Fear the touch of its demon. Never again shall a soul set foot in it under your instruction. You shall not tolerate your filth soiling our sacred grounds. Disappear, never show your face again. The door is flung open as 2 10 men run into the room, their shoulders wide and spears at the ready. However, all they find is their master sitting on bed with a long face and a thread of drool running down his chin. But where is it? Sir, what happened? The demon, find it now. Demon. The guards look at each other, but not wanting to contradict the master holding their chain. They begin to search for this mundane intruder, which, in his stupor, the Duke must have confused for a demon. By then, we have already escaped into the dark behind the sad-eyed lioness, and from there we slip into the night. The rumors of Manuel's newfound demon obsession spread like a pox passed down by the new wave of lion workers who became regulars in the bars near the Baron. But the Duke didn't give up. Just a few weeks later, he put together a new team of lions and ventured into the valley again. Once more, we put a swift stop to that. On the third attempt, the Tales of the Ice Valley's demon, the horrible disease and injury the colonizers suffered, and the frenzy that infected them had spread far enough that only the desperate answered the Duke's call. And one sort of lions, he began recruiting wolves instead. His men were looking his men went looking for those with unpaid taxes, known troublemakers, and anyone desperate and hungry enough to take the meager payment he was offering, and added them as bodies for his expedition. Despite how fond Wine was of treating them like traitors, the other wolves still generally feared the Eye Valley. They wouldn't fall for the same tricks as the lions. Ryan finally got to destroy one of those big wagons just like he wanted, but watching him during the time reminded me of our first 2 years together. I may not have had much love for wolves of Rannai, but I still lived among them for years. I didn't have it in myself to join their festivals, nor did I get rowdy with the other men as they often did when the summer breeze hit. I couldn't say I thought of many of them as friends, but they were still my people. Rannai was my home, and despite everything, I did my best to at least be likable. But they were still my people. Rannai was my home, and despite everything, I did my best to at least be reliable. I knew their faces and voices. We chatted when I took firewood to their homes. During winter, I followed their struggles, unexpected pregnancies, neighborly disputes, childbirth, aging elders, deaths, and grieving. I didn't participate in the Great Lake Games and didn't play in the stands for the Hazley Burning Festival, but I enjoyed watching the competition and the dance nonetheless. Seeing Ryan treat them no different from the Lions, feeling his smile on our face every time we came up with a new idea to use against him, I remembered the schism between us when we were younger, like he was something strange that didn't belong in me. It made me see how different we had grown in these last 8 years. Me trying to fill someone else's pants with anger and regret as company. And Ryan, who had reinvented himself, yet now more than ever was a slave of the festering fear and hatred I had saddled him with. It didn't matter how much Ryan tortured the Duke or how often he sabotaged the expeditions, Manuel wouldn't give up. When the lions pouring into town were reduced to an infrequent trickle, he continued forcing wolves to join the expedition. When they got injured, he opened the hospital. When the hospital got overwhelmed, he began hiring doctors from all over the region. It was easier to find physicians willing to handle the inscrutable diseases of Rannai and treat the injured than to find anyone willing to go into the Eye Valley. A deep desire for some truth we weren't privy to drove him to madness, yes, but not the kind we had hoped for. His madness was single-minded and resolute. Maybe the strategy would eventually work, but I questioned if it was worth the cost, which just kept rising with time. But no matter how I moved the pieces in search of alternatives, how many times I thought it over, I couldn't find any scenario that assured the valley's safety, not without a steep cost for us, but especially for Ryan. So, in the end, I just protected the town in the few ways I was afforded. Being assigned as a peacekeeper was a boon in the end. One night, I returned to the secret passage where we had stashed the relics we swiped during our stay in the mansion and took them to Ricardo. He grew up in the mansion too. Before they disappeared, he must have seen them hundreds of times. He examined them thoroughly, but asked no questions. He just lit his lips, and to this I recall Wyan mulling that gesture over. It was something other than greed. With Trace's help, we kept an eye out for those who had been left unable to work anymore and were at risk of losing everything or being forced into further indentured servitude by the Duke. Scene's case was an exception, but when either of us gave some go, we tried not to make a scene and asked them to keep quiet. We didn't want to raise questions about where all this money we were giving away came from. With that on with that and the authority that had been given to me, I hoped to at least keep Rannai in one piece as it weathered the storm that was Manuel. Though I had been though I had become opposed to Juan's methods and casualties, I had to admit that this stalemate would ultimately prove itself unsustainable for the Duke. There would come a point when his obsession with the valley would amount to little in face of his complete inability to form another expedition. This went on for a year until one stormy day when I was helping in Arro's kitchen. The impossible happened. A rich aroma rises from the cauldron. Kagan dices the vegetables with precise cuts and adds seasoning to those silly little cups he's grown so fond of. Ever since he started helping the wimpy dragon, he's put more thought into cooking. He's found this new pleasure in precisely measuring the ingredients, following methods, and improving the recipes. He's good, but I miss his previous cooking style. Maybe he didn't realize, but he used to match the flavor of Mom's food. It's still tasty, but I don't know. So much precision seems excessive. At least he's having fun. I'd rather not get in the way of that. I wish at least he asked the dragon for a bigger portion. His stew is so good, it's not fair some lions and wolves will eat nearly all of it. Suddenly there's a commotion. Everyone in the kitchen freezes except for Kagan. By the time that big wimp is at the door asking for his help, Kagan is already on his way out. The tavern is a blur as Kagan moves to stop the well-deserved mug from striking the Duke's pet. Where that smudge of gray and yellow and orange, I see black and white. It can't be. I desperately want to confirm our eyes are tricking me. Kagan is speaking to some guy with a stylish eye patch. Kagan. Turn around. I need to see something. Kagan. I poke at him and shout directly inside his ear. Kylie somehow manages to keep his concentration on the wolf, but he does glance off to the side for me. Frozen on the stairs with eyes that signed with realization was a badger, not as tall as I remember him, and with a beard that didn't really suit him. But those little ears, that nose, the kind eyes. Hector, 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 Hector. Hector, 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 Gagan, it's Hector. He's back. In the back of my mind, a pressure built up, rising like the Eye Valley's bug chorus, covering everything to the point I had to strain my hearing to hear anything. And then, just as I began feeling a headache coming, exploded into Ryan, shouting into my ear with such ferocity that I thought he had made me deaf on one side. Hector didn't say anything about it, so he probably didn't notice me nearly falling off my chair right after I sat at the bar. He must have been too absorbed in his own thoughts. Cockgun, go say hi. Why don't you? Lower your voice a little. But I think he's coming, actually. I don't want me to embarrass myself in front of him, right? So quit shouting. I snapped back more strongly than I wanted, but as much as I wanted to pretend I was calm, I very much was not. It dawned on me that I should have seen this coming, even though I didn't know why he never came back or he was even alive. The circumstances were set for this outcome. The stage was set on the moment the Duke began hiring doctors from all over the land. If Hector was at all able to return, it would only be a matter of time until news reached him. But I didn't anticipate this. I was caught unprepared, and Wine wasn't letting me think either. I'm afraid I didn't catch your name earlier, friend. Hector of Oban. It really was him. Actually, hearing his voice and his name was the push I needed to calm my breath and look at him. It really is him. God, I didn't think he'd be this small. I want to pick him up and throw him into the cauldron. Carry Caddy, please. I don't know if he's small or if you're just huge. I don't know, you guys may just be huge. Anyway, I wish I could have actually let Ryan take over and do that because I was drawing an absolute blank. My heart was skipping every other beat as if something was wrong with it. I thought that made my stomach turn. His eyes tell me something, but I just don't get it. I can tell he's expecting something other than just a warm, cordial welcome. But what? In the end, well, that's a face I haven't seen in a long while. I didn't say anything out of the ordinary. It felt wrong, extremely so, as if a chill was spreading through my bones. Indeed, you've grown. What are you doing, Cuddy? I still had this under control, or at least that's what I told myself. We managed to hold a conversation. He apparently was clueless about what was happening in town, so I made sure to catch him up to speed. It still didn't feel right, but Hector seemed happy. I would have been able to push my worries aside and enjoy the chance to see him again had it not been for Ryan getting upset. Caddy, 9 years since we last saw him, and this is how you talk to him. Let me switch in. It had been years since the last time Ryan burst out of me, but the possibility of him coming out right then and there was beginning to genuinely worry me. While Hector was busy eating his stew, I concentrated and talked to Ryan. Absolutely no. Are you crazy? Then do it right. I have no idea what you mean by that. Pick on him. Make him feel like the whelp he is. Make him tell us what the hell kept him away for so long. There had to be a reason. I don't know. I suppose I could ask him. No, you're going to mess it up. Let me do it. You're impossible right now, Ryan. We don't even know if he's married or not. Impossible. Imagine Hector married with children. you you don't think he might have kids, do you? It's not possible. I can't imagine him like that. Oh, but if Aragon forced him to, that damn badger and his stupid mustache. I realized too I realized too late that wasn't the best thing to say, but then Hector talked to me. so I had to turn my attention to him, leaving Ryan to mumble to himself about the Bears' marital status. What did you mean earlier by the town changing? Do you not know what's happening? I figured something bad happened, but the job description was very vague. It just said the Duke was summoning many doctors here. Ryan stopped mumbling. Something was in his mind, but he kept it to himself. I just know he was considering telling the truth. Everything about us and the dark god, right then and there. But he knew I wouldn't do that. So I told Hector just what he needed to hear. A new Duke was in charge, and particularly vicious one obsessed with the valley. When I asked him about how life had treated him, he made another face I didn't quite understand. He looked away as he began telling me about some of his clients. Come to think of it, despite how much pride he has in his profession, Hector never seems very happy to talk about it. In this moment and every other time he talked about it, he'd have this distant look, like he was recounting something that had happened to someone else. Trying to think of it, despite how much pride he has in his profession, Hector never seems very happy to talk about it. In this moment and every other time he talked about it, he'd have this distant look, like he was recounting something that happened to someone else. Now it's obvious to me he had complicated feelings about his profession. After all, but at the at the time I felt I had done something wrong. Perhaps Ryan was right, and I wasn't handling the conversation as well as I thought. Still, I tried to respond with what sounded the most natural to me. You're very skilled from the sound of it. Had you been born a lion, you'd be in their capital working for the nobles and whatnot. You flatter me, but well, life dealt me different cards. Not that I'm complaining. Now that feeling I could understand, having to make the best of with what little you have. Yes. What about your father then? Did he retire? No, he's gone. Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at Wine for help, but he seemed to be weighing his words too. It happened a long time ago, so it doesn't bother me anymore. Hey, what was her name? Something with T? Tracer? She's doing well. She's expecting. Yes, her. Is it her first child? Third. She had twins, both troublemakers like their mother. Don't tell her I said that. Kagan, if you're not going to ask him if he's married, then at least ask him if he has children. I'm not asking anymore. Which reminds me, what about you, Hector? What? Children? Do you have any? No. I have too much work to meet with anybody, let alone think about children. Even if I had time, I don't know if I want any. Good. We should give him some. I didn't respond to that. Instead just taking another gulp of my drink, wishing it would knock me out and spare me the headache starting to boil my brain. I see. 9 years ago, Hector was as transparent as clear water, and now it isn't much better. It's so easy to see what he's thinking. This conversation was all I needed to know. He still reciprocated Ryan's feelings. I'm sure Ryan knows. I still, I'm sure Ryan noticed immediately. I'm sure, I'm sure Ryan noticed immediately, and that was part of why he was so excited. When I touched his shoulder that day, just before we parted ways, the way he folds up said everything. I was glad to have him back, seeing he was still so close to me. If well, as if he didn't spend time apart all these years was comforting. But I wasn't sure if that emotion was strong enough to call it love. It's the same. You're such a stick in the mud. If he was so tired, we still have carried him upstairs in our arms. He has legs for a reason. Let him use them. Come on, didn't you see his face? How shocked he was at how big and strong we've become. He was begging us to show off. I would have crumpled him into a ball without breaking a sweat. I can't wait to see how he reacts to my appearance. Do you think he'll be even more into me? I'm sure I'll scare him at first, but being scared never was that big of a deal for him. If anything, I bet he liked it. Why, do you really think that would be a good idea, telling Hector about you? What do you mean? It would be absurd not to introduce us now that he's back. We let Tressa into the secret, and it was fine, right? Sure, Hector is kind of an open book, but he'll keep those pretty lips of his shut if I just say the right words. That's not it. Will you really drag him into this? If you get discovered or captured or worse, what do you think he'll do? But if that happens, you'll be gone too. Yes, but at least he won't do anything drastic. He's already lived the last 9 years without us. Maybe so, but he still loves us. Wine sighed and crossed his arms, looking up to the sky. At least when this is all, well, at least when this is over, let me talk to him. We were more than a year into this plan, but there was no end in sight for the expeditions. Hector, despite having nothing to do with the Duke or the Eye, shifted the tides with his presence. I didn't think it had necessarily been in our favor. I needed Ryan focus if we were to kick Manuel out of the valley. Not to mention I had to account for Hector's safety now, on top of Dad, Ricardo, and Tracer's. It was a choice I had to make, not one I wanted. There was nothing I wanted more than for Hector and Ryan to reunite properly. Not just for Ryan's sake, but for my own. Hector is easy to read, but he's perceptive when he wants to be. So when did the meeting with the Duke go? Oh, so how did the meeting with the Duke go? Hector seemed too focused on admiring the sight to process the question. I didn't mind him staring, but I wondered if he really liked what he was seeing. He enjoyed my bike, sure. He wasn't the only one. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons some wolves got so pussy about me during the Great Lake Games was because they were hoping to invite me to an orgy after the competition. Not that I could have gotten close to amphitheater without the runes on its stones glowing bright purple, even if I had a desire to go. But Hector's gaze was strange. He wasn't looking at me, but through me, right at the past, if he, well, and he couldn't help but compare it to the present. I didn't need Ryan to tell me I did something strange. The perplexed expression that would show up in Hector's face every once in a while clued me in. But I couldn't help it. I was cockeyed, so I could never be Ryan. It was better to be myself than to try to deceive Hector. Not only because I didn't want to, but because he would have seen right through me. I'm sure he rationalized. I'm sure he rationalized my differences from Ryan in dozens of ways. But that doesn't change that he caught on to them. Ryan was right. Hector would have recognized him no matter how he looked. If not for impressing him with the whole demon act first, with all those with all those illusions of burning hands and disappearing if not for impressing him with the whole demon act first, with all those illusions of burning hands and disappearing doors, Hector would He'll probably realize the truth at once. Is that such a good thing? I still don't know. Hector. Hector? I'm sorry, what do you say? Count your head in the clouds? I was just thinking about work. What a coincidence, I said. How did the meeting with the Duke go? The conversation about the Duke inevitably went to his belief in Rannai's demons, and from there, to me, recounting a time Ryan almost got spotted contaminating the colonizers' food supply with sweet bugs. Ryan was giggling into my ear the whole time, proud of his work. Meanwhile, I was just realizing all of that had already happened a year ago. It felt strange, a full year since we had become a cyber not just in being, but duty. And then he giggled even more when I invited Hector to the river. Oh, gonna sew up. Ooh, gonna put him. Ooh, gonna put up a cell for him. Not really, I just want to wash my clothes. I really wasn't planning to do anything extraordinary, but I didn't mind. But I didn't mind it if Hector liked the sight either. When he kneeled down to check out my armor, and then I walked next to him, I could easily see what he was thinking. Teasing him, then pointing out how obvious he was being, the idea did occur to me. But even though I knew that's what he wanted, even though Wyatt encouraged me to do it, I couldn't. I told myself I didn't want to get involved and didn't want to tie Hector down to Rannai. When in reality, I wasn't sure those were my emotions. I was afraid of discovering how I really felt, or even worse, that I didn't feel anything at all. That I had given up my love alongside everything else. Or perhaps that such a thing had never been in me to begin with, that died with the original Kagan, the one whose left behind body I inhabit, and that such an emotion may entirely escape whatever I may be. And what if Hector was expecting me to turn into the Kagan he knew? But I can never be that person, I cannot even try. He would see through my disguise. It would not take long for him to grow bored and disappointed with me. He tried to like me. He wanted to accept the new me, but I worried I wouldn't last forever. Perhaps me inviting him to the river was just me trying to be wine-like. When the expedition restarted and we were asked to go to the valley to help search for signs of the demon, bringing Hector along was Ryan's idea. But I wanted to do it too. He just seemed so sad as of late, and if going on an adventure together again would be any comfort, then it was worth it. When he wasn't reminiscing, he had this look on his face, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Was he afraid? I couldn't tell. Ryan either didn't notice it, or at least didn't question it. Perhaps he understood something that didn't. Well, perhaps he understood something that I didn't. At that point, I just didn't want to ask. I couldn't bear feeling so inadequate. Somehow, I was still afraid of facing how distant I had grown from those I loved. Hector, who once confused me for Ryan, now didn't recognize me. My parents, who I still held a naive hope of seeing again one day, now looked like a gray blur in my memories. You seem troubled, brother. I huffed, throwing the wood aside before putting another log in the stump to cut it. Hector was still too busy with the injured from the latest expedition, so he wasn't around that afternoon. Still, my eyes searched for him every once in a while. I pictured him with that obvious smile as he watched me work. I don't know how you've been surprisingly patient about talking to Hector lately. I do want to talk to him as soon as possible, But you're right. I need to focus on kicking out that wedge of a Duke. The faster I do it, the faster I can see Hector. I'm only able to wait because you've been keeping him you've been keeping him happy in the meantime. I wouldn't be so sure. You used to complain I did everything wrong, so why the change of mind? I only complained because you were making him do sad faces. But he looks sad so often that I'm not sure it's about you anymore. If anything, he looks happier every time he sees you. He likes you more than you think. Hmm, what do you plan to do on the night of the leaf burning festival, Ellie? I feel like he's going to make a move on you then. I don't know. I'm still worried about giving him reason to stay here. Why? First you say you don't want me to meet him, and now this. What would be so bad about him wanting to stay with Rannai? Besides, Kagan, his father is dead, and you saw how dependent Hector was on him. Does he even have much of a world outside of Rannai? It sounds like you just want him to be as obsessed with you as you are with him. Yes, so I'm still right. I suppose whether I like it or not, merely being here is already a reason for him to stay. Right. So watch what you do when he approaches you. I'll get mad if you say something dumb. I'll help you come up with some pickup lines if you want. No, thank you. It'll sound forced if I use something you give me. That's just because you don't practice them. So lazy. He said, floating on his back as I split another log in one clean cut. I grabbed the next and placed it on the stump. When the day of the leaf burning festival arrived, I silently hoped nothing out of the ordinary would happen, that we just spend a nice night together and go our separate ways as usual. Your smile back then was heartbreaking. I so wanted to make it last, but in the end, I couldn't do it. In the end, I just couldn't find a world where we loved each other. These feelings you were offering me, no matter how hard you tried to accept how it changed, were still meant for Ryan. I couldn't deceive you. Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to tell you the truth, so that night, after we parted ways, I ran back home and slammed the door behind me. What did you do? Go back, Kagan, go back now, go back now. Kagan, go back now. Ryan's voice crystallized in a sharp, skull-splitting headache. I felt his claws break through skin and bone, and he crawled his way out of his depths. He emerged with a desperate howl. I cried for the promise I had broken in his stead, but also a proclamation that he was still there. He would not be ignored nor forgotten. That strength I felt back then, I wonder if Hector ever realized what he did for you, Ryan. Being told you are wanted, loved, maybe that really is all one needs. Had he not said a thing, would there still be a Ryan? Will you have simply vanished eventually? Maybe not, but to you, that was a lifeline. One you still cling on to, and that I destroyed that night. So you howled in grief, not only for Hector, but for yourself, because I denied you. My doubts, my security, they erase you. Who can blame you for fighting back? You always said Hector would recognize you no matter what. Not only did you seek to recreate the bond I broke with Hector, but also to prove that single fundamental truth. You donned the mask that is Rotten Sky, counting on Hector to notice you beneath it. I'm sorry, Ryan, that I ran away back then. Had I been willing to confront my feelings, maybe I would have found a better way. I resented Hector at times for clinging so much to the old Kagan, for reminding me of everything I have lost, but I've been doing the same, haven't I? I returned Kagan to a cage, locked us inside, and thrown away the key. For 9 years I have pretended to be someone I'm not. We're still locked in that dark cell, even now. but no more. It's time, Wyatt. Let us get out, at long last. Let's confront the darkness so that we can feel the sun shine on us, the wind running between our ears once more. I won't turn my eyes away from the truth any longer. I am. I open my eyes suddenly, finding myself in the dark. There's a shuffling and a sniff. A hint of light breaks through what I think is fur. And there's a low, almost unnoticeable rumble in the back of my mind. A sound that I've gotten used to in the past 11 years that it's easy to forget it's there, Ryan's presence at long last. And he must hear my presence too, because he raises his head, letting me see that we're back at the hideout. Cotty, is that you? Ryan, Cotty. He jumps to his hooves, prancing around in the little space the workshop allows him. How long was I gone? I thought I'd never see you again. What the hell happened? Back in the manor, you just stopped responding when you saw what remains of them. I had to do something, so I took back a part of your burden. Caddy, I'm sorry. I know I promised I wouldn't, but he sits down on the floor, crossing his legs. Never mind that. I'm just glad you're back. So that's why I've been feeling a bit lighter. Still, what was that? Those those must have been specters that tormented Leo Bedino in his later years. Ricardo mentioned him becoming more scared and paranoid since we left. Those things must be what made him so afraid. Do do you think it was really him? I don't dare consider the possibility. Their bodies must have turned into some sort of creature that imitates them. I don't want to even think of them being stuck in that state. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. Akadi, I think what you told me. Well, I did what you told me. Surely the Inquisitor has already found the artifact for burned the Duke alive. We did it. Yes, at least that nightmare is over. My attention dwells off to Ryan's left hand. In that moment, he raises his hand, turning it around as he inspects it. He just stares at it for a moment. What's wrong? Nothing. Just our arms feel a bit numb, like I slept on it. So, what now? Let's go out and see what happened. I imagine there'll be a big uproar as Civil has found Manuel guilty. Right, let's hurry up. I want to savor the Duke's face right before he goes up in flames. Alongside the nightmare of our parents' death, the nightmare of Manuel's reign of Rannai also comes to a close. Or at least that's how it should be. That feeling just now was familiar, like something flowing through us, right to our fingertips. But neither of us called it. It simply manifested itself and just as quickly receded, almost as if it announced itself. I hope everything's all right out there. I was kind of hoping that that the story would that we would see what happened after Hector, dropped that liquid into the ground, but kind of figured it would stop right here, and we have to wait a couple months for the next update to see what happens. Anyway, so we got to see we got to see the part after Hector comes back. We got to see Hector be back in Rannai, this time from Kagan's perspective. And I think he still cares about Hector. I mean, he doesn't want him getting in the mess that's happening in this village with the Duke and the lions and the wolves here, and the Dark God potentially waking up. And when Juan first saw Hector in the bar, he went crazy. Like he just couldn't believe what he saw. Like he went kind of crazy. So yeah, Juan very much wants to go at Hector. He wants to go at Hector and just be with him. And Cardan clearly is more cautious. And I think about him, about Cardan believing that he's not really Cardan, like the real Cardan left. I believe it's when Cardan became a Simon, and the part of him that was resentful towards the Duke, which is Ryan. But again, I don't know, that might have came from the valley. I think Ryan must have came from the valley. He kind of anyway, I'm not gonna go back, but anyway, I think once the two sides of Cargon was established, the real Cargon left. I mean, maybe there's part of Cargon, maybe one half of Cargon is still Cargon, and the other half of Cargon is Ryan, and the real full Cargon no longer exists. But it's been more, but it's like it's been split into two. Not the whole Cargon is gone, but the remnants of Cargon are still there between this Cargon and Ryan. So this new Cargon doesn't. I think he still cares about Hector. He certainly does somewhat care about Hector. He does, but he doesn't have the feelings that the original Cargon used to have. And he didn't really seem to mind Hector looking at him being naked, or just him marveling at his muscular physique. Because I kind of thought that this, Cargon would have been. I thought Cargon would not have liked it, but it seemed as though Cargon knew in the bathing scene that he knew Hector was looking down at him. He didn't really mind that much. And he really and Ryan really got angry at Cargon when he turned Hector down. Where he decided, no, we're not gonna be a couple. Yeah, Ryan got really angry, but um anyway, I think Ryan's plan of tormenting the Duke, I understand, the Duke did a lot of horrible stuff, but I guess his plan really caused this whole situation. Well, I don't know about caused situation, but it kind of had a reverse effect or a different effect. Like he didn't think that the Duke would be this determined. He thought the Duke would just stop. He would have been scared and stopped doing, trying to go into the valley. But apparently, the Duke is very determined. He's very determined to go into the valley, discover what the valley holds, and study them, and surpass his father's legacy in medical research. So it's gonna take a lot more just to stop the Duke. I'm very eager to see what happens next time. So next time, the update should continue from where the um the story left off with Hector pouring the liquid into the ground with the Inquisitor Silverwolf and the Duke and all the guards watching him. Hopefully, it won't be too long, but it'll probably be a couple months at least. So, we got to see a lot more of the story through Kakan's perspective instead of Hector's. We got to see how he felt about Hector and him coming back, and how he really feels about Hector. And I think he still cares about Hector, but not the exact same way as the original Kagan did. Well, certainly not the way Wayne does, but I think he kind of still cares about Hector, and he still has respect for Hector, and that he even kind of didn't like how he introduced himself to Hector. He thought that was kind of rude and that he could have done a better job. So that's all for now. So I'm really looking forward to how everything unravels with Hector having to pour the liquid into the ground and see what happens. Does the Duke get in trouble? Like what Ryan thinks will happen? Or he think might have happened already? Or, well, the opposite happens? I don't know, but we'll just have to see. I think, I have a feeling that something else is going to happen. And something is going to throw a wrench into Ryan's plans here. It's not gonna, it's not gonna get the result that he wants. But again, I could be wrong. But I just have a feeling that his plan is not going to work out. Seems like in these stories, like when a character is so sure that something's going to happen, and that they are so sure it will happen, when their plan goes as planned, a lot of times it goes the opposite direction, and their plan don't work. So that's the feeling I have when when Ryan at the end there thought that this whole issue with the Duke would come to West, and that Silver would prosecute him, and that the town would be free of the Duke's reign. I have a feeling that it's not going to happen. Either it doesn't was or other whatever happens doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? Either it doesn't happen the way Ryan wants to, like it doesn't happen in the way that makes Silver prosecute the Duke, or if it does, it turns out to be even worse. And that, I don't know. But anyway, I'm just speculating. So I think something else is gonna happen, but maybe things will turn out the way Ryan wants it to be. But I just have a feeling that turn out to be the way it won't turn out to be that way. Something else will happen, and there'll be a wrench thrown to Ryan's plan. And I like what they did where, like, depending on whose perspective you're reading or you're listening to, their face appears. Like a narration. So like Kagan's face will appear, and then Ryan's face will appear. So I really like that a lot because it makes things easier, without having to use to think or speculate, all that. But it makes things a lot easier who we're with whose mind we're in and who's narrating the certain parts of the story. So I really like that when they got their face right there on the EU on a UI, excuse me, with their face right next to text. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.